Hello, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, whenever you might be catching us, wherever you might be catching us. Welcome to the Richard Watkins Podcast. Listen, I don't care whether or not you are a morning bird. I don't care whether or not you are a night owl. See, technology has it so that you can check us out any time of the day at your convenience. I'm just happy that you're here and hoping that you learned something. Remember, the Richard Watkins Podcast is a proud production of the Science Policy Action Network, a leading consulting, research, and engagement firm. Find out more about the Science Policy Action Network, better known as SPAN Inc., at span-inc.org. That is span-inc.org. Now, with that out of the way, let's get right into it. We start these topics or these conversations out with, listen, I'm just happy that you're here with us, regardless of what time of day it is, whether or not you are a morning, I always struggle morning, a morning bird or a night owl. And I like that because at the end of the day, I just really like animals. I love animals. I love animals. I like animals so much that it kind of gets under my skin when I ask somebody what their favorite animal is, and they say a pet. Pets are animals, so I guess they can. But I'm just like, there's so many amazing animals out there, and you say a cat. There's so many amazing cats out there that aren't even domesticated. So let's just really start there. Um, I was talking to somebody the other day and they were asking me what my favorite animal is. And it's hard. I don't really have a favorite animal, or maybe I do, because so many animals are incredible. And I said, oh, you know what? I think the killer whale is my favorite animal, or the orca. And they asked me, why? Why is that your favorite animal? And I got to thinking, and I'm like, if I were to think of, all the animals as having special gifts or abilities, there's so many ancient stories about animals being given special powers by the divine. Say the elephant is massive and it's very strong. The giraffe is very tall. The lion is courageous and fierce. The chimpanzee is brilliant. All the animals get all of these abilities. The dog, the wolf works great in a pack. I mean, so too does the lion, but the dog works great in a pack. They all get all their abilities. But it seems like there's one animal, at least the way I kind of look at it, that seems to have gotten all of the superpowers. And that to me is the orca. That animal was given all of the powers. All right, so let's have something that swims in the ocean as large as a bus. And that's the orca, right? It's larger than an elephant. Let's just make it put it in the ocean, make it larger than a bus and super fast. Yeah, it's also super fast as well, right? I didn't mention the cheetah or the peregrine falcon, but we're going to make this one fast as well. All right, what about fear? Yes, it's the one of the fiercest animals in the ocean. In fact, I don't know if anything else it hunts. There's a movie widely regarded as one of the most terrifying movies of all time called Jaws, which featured a great white shark. And because of that movie, the great white shark, which is a fantastic hunter, was revered and looked at as, okay, this is the apex predator. When you close your eyes and you think of a predator, you oftentimes think of a lion or a great white shark. There's nothing better, except an orca hunts great white sharks. It, that movie should have been made about orcas, and not a great white shark, but I'm assuming Steven Spielberg knows a little bit more about movies than I do, as Jaws was an excellent, excellent movie and a fantastic amusement park ride as well. Well, okay. They don't hunt in packs like the dog. No, yeah, they do hunt in packs, packs large that work together and cooperate. And on top of that, we mentioned the chimpanzee. It is the smartest animal in the ocean. And then somebody could push back and like, all right, listen, amongst animals, fine, it's fine, yeah, but it can't. It's not better than a human. See, humans, and listen, I'm I play a role in this as well. We look at ourselves as being the best at everything, right? And so there's no way an animal can be ever looked at as being superior to us. I mean, we're humans. I mean, you know, but an orca can be found in every single ocean on the planet. Every single ocean. And the fact of the matter is most of the planet is covered by water. And quite honestly, even though you can find humans everywhere, humans don't live in Antarctica. Yeah, you can find sites and places where humans inhabit, but generally speaking, humans do not live in Antarctica. But orcas, you can find everywhere. So an orca is the fiercest predator in the water. It is brilliant. It works very close together, which is evidence of, you know, high social and emotional intelligence. They think, they mourn, they work together, they teach their young how to hunt. And not just that, they have hunting strategies for different environments and different prey. For example, many orcas have perfected a technique in which they swim very fast towards a sheet of ice, and that sheet of ice has a seal sitting on top of it. That seal thinks it's safe, right? It's not in the water. I'm out of the water. I am on ice. I'm good. I'm good. Listen, I know my friend was caught by an orca and it was eaten, but that was only because it wasn't fast enough. It couldn't get to the ice flow fast enough. But now here I'm up on this ice. I'm good. Nah. Nah, you're not good, buddy. You're not good. You're not good because an orca has developed, and it's not all orcas. It's only certain orcas that live in certain areas developing specific techniques to deal with prey in that particular area. So what they've developed is the ability to swim full speed at the ice flow, and right when it gets to the ice flow, it dives down. Now, this creates a wave that washes onto the ice flow and rinses the seal into the water. You're not even safe on land. Oh, wait. There's another example of not being safe on land. They're really they're really coming after these seals. Listen, if you're a seal and you're dealing with an orca, you just, I don't know, just chalk it up. You're not as developed. You're not as developed of an animal as an orca. It's so sad. It's just like the prey is not even on a level. Like you see a cheetah chasing a gazelle, and it's like, all right, this is a good match, right? Because the cheetah is the fastest animal, but the gazelle is very fast as well, and it can turn. And when you're watching a cheetah pursue a gazelle, you're like, ooh, this is good. Will it actually catch? In fact, of the matter is, the cheetahs don't always catch, their prey. Orcas are so successful at catching their prey that they actually can't help but to play with their prey. Just play games with it. An orca, you can see flipping a seal back and forth through the water like they're playing a game of seal volleyball. Like they're not even pressed about eating it. They're just like, I'm gonna play a game with this seal. The seal is alive, being flown through the air. You can see videos of it. It's very common orca behavior to play with their food. But I think you have to be a certain level of intelligence and a certain level of success. You have to be full. You can't be famished and play with your food, right? I think that just shows how successful a cheetah, if it catches something, it's got to gorge itself because chances are it's going to be stolen by a larger animal like a lion, right? And so they're just eating, right? And so they can't play, right? You ever see a cheetah? They're scrawny, fast animals, right? They got to eat their food, but an orca, it's gonna play with its food. It's not worried about a single thing stealing its meal. Nothing in the ocean's gonna steal its meal. And it just has so many different ways. Like it likes to eat penguins, but apparently orcas just don't like the taste of penguin feathers. So it's developed a way to basically unsheath the penguin. Unsheath, like you take a knife out of its sheath or a sword out of its sheath. I'm not an expert in this terminology, but basically it's the casing that covers the blade to kind of protect it from wear and tear until you're ready to use it. You unsheath it, right? And so the penguin has a sheath better known as its skin and feathers, but the orca doesn't like dealing with it, right? And so it's developed a way. I don't know about all orcas, but some orcas have developed a technique that they pass down from generation to generation, which basically allows them to, I guess, use their tongue and their lips to push the penguin through its body, right? And so on the end of it, you've got this naked penguin with no feathers and no skin, perfect for the orca to dine on, kind of like squeezing toothpaste out of a tube of toothpaste. I'm telling you. But going back to not being safe out of the water, I mean, listen, I hear people talk about animals all the time. They love the grizzly bear, they love the lion, they love all this. Nothing's messing with the orca, right? Back to being on land, you're not safe. There are also other orcas. The seals are running away and they get out of the water and they're onto the beach. They're safe. They're good, right? Nah, nah, you're not safe. You're not safe nowhere from an orca. An orca will purposefully beach itself. Now, if you're familiar with that term, like a beached whale, you know that if a whale finds itself on the beach, washed ashore, not able to get back into the ocean, it dies, right? From exposure. It needs that water to protect its skin. It needs the water to live. Even though it has to breathe air, it still needs the water to live. And so if it's beached, it'll die. But an orca wants all of that seal. Ain't nothing gonna stop it from getting that seal. It will intentionally beach itself, just to pull and pluck the seal from the beach and throw it back into the water. You see images of it. The seal has made it to the beach, to the shore, and it's like breathing like, "Oh, I'm good now." And then all you see is this giant submarine. It's incredible. Just like I can't even describe, like a giant torpedo. Like remember the old Godzilla where Godzilla's coming in New York, and the first thing you see of Godzilla is it coming through the water, destroying the dock or the pier, and it's just like this huge mass, like generating a wave as it comes onto shore. That that's a killer whale. I wonder if the people who created that movie were inspired by killer whales intentionally beaching themselves, but they'll beach themselves, grab that seal, and throw it. Just and it's nothing. I mean, these seals are hundreds of pounds, and just toss it like a rag doll back into the water to eat it, to torture it, to play with it. I don't know. Anything goes for an orca. Anything goes for a killer whale. That term killer whale is so apropos because there's nothing close to them. Nothing close to them, which is, I mean, I don't get it. They haven't been recorded as ever eating a human in the wild. I don't trust that, man. They are apex, and I just really want. There's nothing above them. Nothing above them. And speaking of above or beneath, their color pattern plays these weird visual tricks, right? It's black on the top. So if you're above it and look down, it's hard to see it. And if you're below it and look up and it's above you, its belly is white. It's also hard to see it. So it's a vicious, brilliant predator that works in teams that's invisible. I'm sorry, I'm getting man. I feel like people don't be like fanboys for orcas like they should, man. And there ain't nothing out there like them, man. Ain't nothing out there like an orca, yo. Ain't nothing like that like an orca. Every single ocean, you can find them, just wreaking havoc on everything. Nothing is not whales, great white sharks, seals, penguins, boats. Oh, you didn't know that? You didn't hear about boats? Hold on one second. I'll tell you about it. Hold on. That's some good coffee right there. All right, check this out, yeah. So increasingly, and I mean, I don't know why, and if you are listening to this and you've heard some explanations or some studies have revealed some of the reasons, but increasingly, orcas have been recorded attacking um, marine vessels and boats. Let's see right here. Let's see what a story is. It came up. I didn't even finish typing it. Yeah, so it has usually been seen as being playful. Again, we as people, we tend to put our own feelings on animals, and sometimes it's right, sometimes it's wrong. We can't help it. And anytime we describe anything, we have to describe it through our own lens, and we have a tendency to put our own values, our own emotions onto animals. We just do that all the time. And so it says, hey, they're attacking boats. It's like they're having fun. It's play, you know, who knows? But increasingly, like I said, they are attacking vessels and sinking them. It's been over 600 that I see right here, with at least six of those vehicles sunk. So that's significant. That's 1% of all the attack vessels being sunk. I mean, now it says no humans have been harmed, right? That's our big thing, but it's hard to really appreciate how it is really viewing us, right? Now, a lot of animals that aren't to the same cognitive uh, level as the orca, you might see them just attacking whatever is swimming by. But I suspect that an orca is just so intelligent that it recognizes humans as being something different. It may like, what is this, right? I'm not going to just go and attack it, because remember, orcas are developing strategies to hunt every animal that they hunt. They have developed a technique that is taught, passed down from generation to generation, on how to hunt that particular animal. And it doesn't really matter what it is, they hunt everything. And so it could be the case that they're not hunting, eating, killing humans, is because they haven't developed enough time, right? Because humans in the water swimming with scuba gear, that's not as long of a time as penguins swimming in the water, right? And so the orcas have had a longer time to develop hunting strategies, and then pass those hunting strategies down to their children and children's children and children's children to hunt that particular animal. So it could be the case that humans and orcas haven't been in the same um, environment for long enough for orcas to have developed a hunting strategy for humans. And that might be the reason, I don't know, that might be the reason why orcas don't attack humans. Now, there are accounts of orcas attacking humans in captivity, but that's an artificial environment. And that also kind of suggests what I'm saying. If you increase the exposure that an orca has with a prey, then it will possibly develop that strategy. But these strategies, as far as I understand, are not developed like that. They're developed over years, over generations of being in that same environment with that prey and using the environment against that prey. So it's not even just, I'm just going to go after that animal, eat it, which they can, right? They're fast enough, they're powerful enough, right? They hunt larger whales by jumping on top of it, drowning it, right? Separating a calf from his mother, right? They'll do that, but they also utilize the environment around them to hunt the animals, right? So they're not just going after, but they use the environment against them. And that takes an understanding, it takes teamwork, collaboration. You'll see a lot of um, you'll see a lot of situations where orcas are hunting and it is being observed by younger orcas who are trying to learn the technique so that they too can participate. They'll create scenarios in which they might injure a prey to allow the younger orcas to kind of practice their technique. They'll maybe let the younger orca go first, putting it in a situation where it has to, you know, activate the moment or whatever strategy it utilizes to hunt. And so they're doing a lot of different things, and it takes a lot of time, diligence, exposure. And perhaps they just don't have that many opportunities with humans, right? Some may beg to differ, but that could be one of the reasons why there haven't been any documented cases of orcas attacking, eating humans in the wild. Maybe not enough time has gone by. Maybe there hasn't been enough generational exposure between orcas and humans in the water in that proximity. Not saying that those opportunities haven't presented themselves, but maybe a longer period of time has to occur before the orcas develop a strategy, a dependable strategy for hunting humans. And I hope that never happens because if you've ever seen a picture of an orca, they're like terrifying. Everybody says an orca is cute. I think they're absolutely terrifying. I mean, the giant dorsal fin. I mean, again, I'm gonna go back to Jaws because I just feel like they put they put a lot on like sharks that are actually more appropriate for orcas. And so one of the things you remember is Jaws, boo doo, doo 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 doo, right? That's the music that accompanies that dorsal fin cutting through the surface of the water. That ain't nothing. The dorsal fin of an orca, the dorsal, it's like a sailboat sail sticking out of the water. I mean, it's giant, just sticking. And then it's just like it's a group of them. You can have it. You can absolutely have it, right? Animals are just absolutely fantastic, and they are all just sculpted for survival, right? That drive to survive makes them who they are. It makes everything who they are. And the same applies for us as well, right? That drive to survive has, propelled humans into that situation that we find ourselves in now. And there's that constant struggle that we might not see or recognize because of, the modernity of all of it. But we have that same instinct. It is why we do the things that we do. It's why we crave attention and affection, why we look for opportunities to procreate, why we have the urge to eat, while we are triggered by sights and sounds to have actual physical reactions. We are shaped by that same drive to survive that has shaped everything else around us. I mean, I picked orca in this particular situation, but I could pick any number of animals, and we can really look at all of the things that make them incredible and point back to, oh, they developed that to be successful in this particular environment, this particular area. And it's just absolutely amazing. Amazing. It's always this constant arms race that exists between predator and prey, between animals and their environment. And it is tough to survive. It is tough. You see the places where these animals inhabit and thrive, and they're rough, they're difficult, but they have found a way to survive generation after generation after generation after generation. And if you see an animal alive now, you should tip your cap to them because they are champions of survival. There are countless species and animals that are no longer around because they have gone extinct from one reason or another, catastrophic event. Maybe humans have encroached upon their environment and they could not compete for survival in the utilization of resources. Countless numbers of species that are no longer with us. So if you see an animal today, it is a survivor. It is incredible. But the question is, what happens when something new is introduced, right? We've seen this a lot. I had a student that asked me a very interesting question. They said, Dr. Watkins. I said, yes. He said, you know, animals, they were doing good, they were thriving, and then humans come in, and there's nothing really that an animal can do to like change its situation, change its circumstances in relationship to a human, because the human is apex. I mean, our intellect collectively has made us apex, right? Now, keep in mind, right? Not all humans are, not every human developed a computer, right? Humans have created computers, streets, cars, medical device, but not every human does that. Most humans don't know how any of the things that they interact with even work. I mean, so that's a capacity that exists within humans, but not all humans do these things. Like a human can be an apex hunter, but not all humans hunt. A human can be a magnificent artist, but very few people are capable of creating art. Um, well, amazing art, right? Anybody can doodle, right? I can doodle, you know what I'm saying? Right? Not every human is an athlete. So I got some new decorations behind me, right? That's a football helmet from my high school. It's a souvenir. It's got my high school football number on it. And I've got it up there because the Grimsley High School is the North Carolina State football champions. Shout out Grimsley. And back to back, by the way. That's where I went to high school. And so I got the little helmet up there. But I was an athlete. But most humans are not athletes. In fact, most adults, this is crazy. Most adults can't run. Like, think about it. Like, really think about it. Like, at a certain age, most adults can't run. Have you ever have you ever seen videos of like people trying to, and they're just like stumbling and they just can't run or jump or like do anything like physical. And so oftentimes we attribute qualities that humans collectively have been able to accomplish, but forgetting that most humans can't do any of these things. But when you're talking about like an animal, you're like, all right, what's the best hunter? You're like, oh, well, humans, they're the best hunter. They're able to overfish. They're able to hunt. But most people don't do anything. Whereas an orca, every orca is a hunter. So it's kind of hard, right? It's like apples and oranges. But that's not where I want to go. Where we're going to go is how do we come to grips with having created something that surpasses us intellectually? That is something that's really interesting. And we haven't come to grips with it at all, right? And of course, I'm talking about the advent of artificial intelligence, which, a lot of the conversations is about like general intelligence. And one of my questions is how will we even know? Do we have even the capacity to recognize it? I mean, I would argue that I'm not sure. I mean, maybe we've already achieved it. And what is we have achieved it? I mean, the AI has achieved it. I think we have a hard time grappling with the relationship that we have with technology and specifically this new technology, which is artificial intelligence. We work very hard to provide ourselves with a feeling that we know what's going on, but we don't. We don't completely know how it works. Even the people who are responsible for developing it, of course, their insights are superior to ours. And they will tell you that we don't really know how it is working. Moreover, and I've said this before, and I've had guests that also have said the same thing, we actually don't really know the impact that it will have on society. Now, we have, how am I going to say this? We have experience only with collaboration, conflict, and competition with other humans and with animals, but we've kind of gotten past that. I mean, when we were, hunters and gatherers, uh, early in our evolution, roaming the plains of Africa, yes, we did have to grapple with animals. The reason why dogs are our companions and our pets now is that we've developed that companionship, that collaboration with an animal, right? So conflict, collaboration, cooperation, right? Um, Competition. But for the most part, we're beyond that now. Our ability to industrialize, first agricultural, then industrialization, it really gave us just ownership of the planet. I mean, beyond what we already had. I mean, it transformed everything. But now we've got to the point where we've developed a a new entity, and then that entity processes information very different than us, has access to all information, and then for all our measurements of cognition and intellect, it has surpassed us in every way, shape, fashion, and form. But what does that mean for society? Especially most of society are not really aware of what we are dealing with when it comes to artificial intelligence. I think artificial intelligence is absolutely incredible, but obviously it has its pros and its cons. Most of it, when we talk about pros and cons, is just there's a lot of ambiguity. It's not clear as to how it will develop. 5 years ago, I would not have well, 5 years ago, we were thinking about artificial intelligence and we were having conversations at Sigma Xi, the Scientific Research Honor Society, about artificial intelligence. I remember having conversations over dinner about how technology, it specifically artificial intelligence, will replace people in every single capacity. And then people were pushing back, like, well, what about love? There's no way that we can replace love. Love is something that is specific to humans. And very quickly you found out that that's not the case or true. You've got people falling in love with large language models. You've got evidence of people taking care of virtual children while neglecting their biological actual children. There's constant evidence of that has already taken place. And so we were having conversations about this. And so, AI coming, but I just don't think we really appreciated how quick it would come, how rapidly it would develop. And so that begs the question, what is to come? And I don't think there's any way to predict that. I think there's any way to predict. So what we tend to do is we tend to focus on issues that we've had experience with that are presenting themselves with artificial intelligence, right? We've had experience with jobs and employment. And so, because artificial intelligence is going to make a lot of labor and work and thought and so many occupations obsolete for people to do, it's easy to kind of focus on, all right, what will this do to employment? So we've got experience with talking about employment. And so what it'll do to employment, where are the jobs? What's going to happen with joblessness? That's something we've come to grips with. Environment. water right now on my desktop is a beautiful picture of a lake and mountain range. It's absolutely gorgeous. We've got a deep connection with the environment, with resources. One of the most fundamental of all resources is water, right? And so we've got a great relationship with that. And so it's easy for us when talking about our fears and concerns with artificial intelligence to understandably focus on water, right? A lot of conversations are about water usage, uh, as you know, as is important for cooling of data centers, right? And these are legitimate concerns, but they're still concerns that we have because we've had a relationships or experience with these concerns, right? Resources, fundamental. We've been dealing with water for a very, very long time since we have been in existence. Uh, Jobs, occupations. This is something that we've historically grappled with as a society, as people. But one of the things that we just haven't really wrapped our minds around is, what does it mean to no longer be intellectually superior to everything else on the planet, to go from being number one to number two? What does that mean? And what does it mean to interact with a level of intelligence that we have never seen before, let alone that we created? And I just think, understandably, it's hard or impossible to wrap our minds around. It's also very hard to predict what will happen, or what will something that is intellectually superior to us, what would it want from us, what would it do? It's extraordinarily hard to really predict all of those things. And so, of course, I think about it a lot. A lot of conversations are about it, but what I find is that most people just, it's hard for a lot of people. Some responses are, and I might have alluded to this on another episode, but a lot of responses are like, we've dealt with this before. We've dealt with this before. Well, I think that's a like a defense mechanism. It provides a like a sense of security, like a reassurance, because if it's something that you've dealt with before, it it gives you that confidence that you can deal with this, right? We dealt with that. We're still here. We'll deal with this, and we'll be here afterwards. That's misleading. It's inappropriate, from I think, a cognitive standpoint, to apply lessons learned from the past to situations in the future, which you don't really know what they're going to be like. We do it because it's all we have access to, our past experiences, but it doesn't take into account the massive variability that goes into predicting the future. I mean, that's why it's impossible, because there's so many things that are happening all the time. And then going off of past experiences usually misleads us, and that's just how it goes. And so when we talk about, oh, what about the agricultural revolution? What about the industrial revolution, right? What about this new age of information and technology? We've grappled with all of it. We'll grapple with this one, but I think that's a mischaracterization. And actually, I think you're also misremembering what has happened in the past. With all of those situations, you had massive social change. You have obviously people who lose their lives, right? The advent of the agricultural revolution meant that it was now, you're now able to raise armies because you're now able to feed those armies. And a lot of people look at war as being one of the worst things that humans can do. And so the agricultural revolution itself has been looked at by historians as being the reason for the rise of warfare and the ability to create armies, right? Because on an like on a hunter gatherer system, you don't have the ability to create enough food to create a civilization, to create an army. And so the agricultural revolution is looked at as maybe it was giving rise to warfare. It's also looked at as giving rise to slavery, right? You look at the industrial revolution, right? It advances warfare. It makes almost all the things that we do worse, right? And so it's hard to be like, oh, we got through this, we'll get through it. There's a lot of people who didn't get through it, right? And their descendants are not here, right? That's just how it goes, and so it makes it really difficult to really figure out, where this all goes. And I think one of the things that's just really interesting is, again, I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but all that automation piece is going to be really, really interesting. So we have robots, humanoid robots, who are governed by AI. So they're not a person behind a controller, right? It's being governed by AI. These things already exist. And so you've got AI being able to move from the digital world into more of the physical world where it's going to be able to interact. That's just going to get better and better and better and better. Um I was at another conference in Washington D.C., and I remember talking with a researcher then, a Japanese researcher, and I think it was the Japanese Society for the Progress of Science. I might have that acronym. I might have that wrong, but and we were talking about automation and artificial intelligence. And he was like, well, pretty soon we're not going to be able to determine whether or not we're actually talking to a real person, even if we are in person in the presence of the person we're talking to. And he's like, yeah, I won't be able to tell. Talking to me, Richard Watkins, like, I won't be able to tell whether or not you could be a robot right now. And that's really what we're talking about. And I'm telling you, because I know you might be thinking this, but you're not having these conversations. You're working, you're trying to pay bills, you're trying to raise kids, making sure they're getting to whatever they got to get to, right? You're trying to make ends meet. Because listen, I get it. Month at the end of the money instead of money at the end of the month. I get it. The grind is real. So you're like, I don't have time to really comprehend all of these things. But just know we are approaching a time where you'll pass a person and you won't be able, just off of eyesight, determine whether or not that's a person or a robot. That's just gonna be the case. And then you're gonna start having just so many different types of robots, because the humanoid form won't be the best form for a robot in every single circumstance, right? Different scenarios, different environments will require a different type of robot. Maybe a robot with no legs, four legs, two legs, six legs. Like, there'll be different forms that they will be, because the humanoid robot won't be the best for all situations. And so you're going to get into that situation. And then I think you'll start having society break into like different groups based off of how how they feel about the technology or how it's impacting them, and they'll have different ways of thinking about it. Again, we're thinking about data centers and water because this is what we've had experience with, right? We're talking about, well, will I have a job because this is what we've had experience with. We have never had experience with not being the smartest thing on our planet. And so we collectively don't have the ability to articulate our concerns because we don't have the imagination that will inform us of what could be, because we've never had any experience with that. Again, as the episode where we talked about, what was it, the illusion of the creation of history? I forgot what that episode was called. We described how we look backwards and we can't look forward, right? And I think that quality of being a human makes it very hard for us to really kind of grapple with, what does this mean for us? What does it mean for me? What does it mean for our family? What does it mean for our community? It's really hard. And so again, all we really talk about is like things that we are used to, right? And it's not saying that these aren't legitimate concerns, because they are, but in time, they will look like small concerns compared to what we will have to grapple with. We'll look back and be like, oh, water centers, all that was That was the least of our worries. At the time, it felt like it was the biggest concern. But as time has gone by, now that's the least of our worries. And one more thing that I have to stress when talking about technology, talking about artificial intelligence, talking about automation, just talking about innovation in general, right? Because this is more of a story of innovation. AI is just a part of the innovation, and it's a larger story. Innovation shapes everything around us. And I've said it again, I say it again, and I've said it before. The amount of impact innovation will have on our lives over the course of the next 10 years will be greater than the impact that innovation has had on our lives and society the past 1,000 years. And that's just the level of change that we are in the midst of. Not, again, in the midst of, right? Not in the future, today, this is happening. But I want to say this one thing, and it's easy to forget this because we as people, we're always looking for the threat. That's more important in us than anything else is identifying a threat to the status quo. That is so important to us. The status quo. There's very few of us that are like, I reject the status quo and want something better, right? Very few of us. Most people just want, hey man, just leave that. I just leave it alone. I just want things that, and so we're equipped to look at threats, but for for all the things that the uncertainty of innovation prompts us to fear, there are just as many exciting, beneficial outcomes that are likely to come, that are likely to come. Meaning there are just as many things to fear as there are things to look forward to. There are just as many things to dread as there are things to happily anticipate. Just as there are concerns about water, there can be opportunities for us to create, save, clean, protect our water. So our concerns right now over water usage might be misplaced. Maybe this water usage now is an investment to afford greater water opportunities in the future. I don't know. But fear, that false expectation, what, appearing real? What fear, false expectations appearing real? I'm not saying that they won't happen. You got legitimate concerns out there. We've got legitimate concerns out there. But because we are always looking for threats, we don't have an opportunity to look at opportunities. And we've struggled with water for a long time. We've struggled with labor exploitation for a very, very long time. This could be an opportunity for a brighter tomorrow by solving the problems of the past that today we have been unable to find solutions for. And with that, we've talked about an orca, talked about technology. I have been your host, Dr. Richard Watkins. This has been the Richard Watkins Podcast. The Richard Watkins Podcast is a proud production of the Science Policy Action Network, or SPAN Inc. Find out more about SPAN, leading research, consulting, and engagement firm at span-inc.org. That's span-inc.org. Again, thank you so much for being with us. And remember that the future is not something to wait for. It is something to build. Until next time, take care.